Hi Stampers! Welcome to Stampers Club today. Today I'm going to share with you this really fun fall card. We did this last week in my monthly stamp class. I do a third Monday of the month. We do class 3 cards, 3 wow cards, and this happens to be one of them. And I thought I would share it with all of you today. So I used the Gather Together bundle with the stamp set and the matching framelits, which is really fun. I love how these framelits not only cut, but they add some texture too. And then the pumpkins, we have some doubles of them so that you can actually do lots of pumpkins and not have to do one at a time. That's always really fun too. So let's get started. First, I'm gonna have us get going on some scrap paper here of some scrap watercolor paper that we need to get colored up for the leaves. So we'll start with that because it takes a moment to dry. We're going to use an aqua painter, and I do get it pretty wet. So you just fill the barrel with water, and then you can just give it a little squeeze and you'll see that water drip out. And I started with Mango Medley, and I need a little more ink than that. So I'm just going to take a little re-inker and add a little drop there in the lid. And I do keep this, like I said, I keep this one pretty wet. So I'm gonna gather that up, and I'm just gonna squeeze as I paint so that it stays fairly wet and goes across to the whole paper. Add in a little color, make some areas a little bit darker than others. And just kind of generally get the whole thing with some color on it. Clean out my brush, okay? And then I'm going to come back in, I'm going to add a little bit of the terracotta tile. Oh, look, I've got ink already in that one. And again, I'm just going to get a little bit of it, and I'm not going to color the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of dab it here and there, kind of make a collage of colors. Clean that out. I want some little darker spots. Okay. And if you add a little too much, you can always grab a little bit more of that mango and bring that back in and get it a little more orangey if that's the way you want your leaves to be. Then I also added in some soft suede. As you know, most fall colors have a little bit of not quite so perfectly clean and vibrant colors. Have a little muddling going on there. And again, if you want those colors to be more blended, all you have to do is add a little water and they're going to bleed out. Okay? We're going to just set that over here and let that dry for a moment. Okay? And then we're going to make our cute little pumpkins. Those I actually did emboss. So get some Versamark. Our pumpkins here. Stamp those down. With the photopolymer, sometimes I use a little piercing mat for a base, but I have a glass top table here, so it's pretty flat, so I don't get any bridging, so I'm not too worried about that on this table. But if you have a table that has an inconsistent surface, it's great to grab one of those piercing mats and put it underneath for a cleaner stamping with the photopolymer stamps. Looks like I missed a little bit of the edge of my pumpkin there. Okay, set that aside. And I have, my good old-fashioned clothespin to heat emboss this. A lot of times I warm up the back side of the paper a little bit. It kind of seems to help not only just warm up the heat gun, but the paper warms up a little bit so that the heat embossing happens a little faster. I know I have quite a few girls that are always a little bit confused with heat embossing. And you don't, get pretty close to the paper, kind of keep the heat gun pretty steady. You don't have to do a lot. You'll notice, I don't know if you'll catch this on camera, but this part of it is not embossed yet. It's still kind of a dull, fuzzy looking. And then you have the shiny part where the heat embossing is melting that powder. So as you run that over, it'll just all of a sudden start to change color. And I love embossing. I know it's one of those things that it's hard, but if you keep doing this with your heat gun, you're not going to get enough warmth fast enough to really melt it very fast, so just kind of take your time. Yes, if you hold it there for a really, really long time, you could catch your paper on fire. But I think most of us don't hang out in one spot that long anyway, so I think you're safe to say that you could just stay a little cautious and keep moving just slowly and you'll get that all colored. And then again, I'm going to use the same color palette, get my watercolor brush, which I think is running out of a little bit of water. And I'm going to just cover the whole pumpkin with the Mango Medley ink. Get the other two over here, same thing. I'm just kind of getting my base color on. And I'm going to come back in with the same color and kind of do some of my shading. Get the edges pretty dark here. And there's no rhyme or reason on this. You just want to kind of add your own color, your own flair to it. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's the art of watercoloring, is it's not meant to be all one color. I'm going to bring in a little bit of that terracotta and make these just a little bit more orangey. Now, you could certainly use pumpkin pie. I've used pumpkin pie a lot recently. I was kind of looking for a little change, and I really like how the terracotta and the Mango Medley really played together and created a nice fun fall color. So I'm making it just kind of orange here, and I'm leaving that center to kind of highlight the center of the pumpkin where you have like the spotlight would be on it. So I'm going to kind of leave that there. Now, if you don't like how dark it is, you can actually go ahead and add a little bit more water, and when you wash that out, just like we did on that other palette, it's going to change that coloring just a little bit. You can also bring back with your paper towel, and you can even lighten that up even more if you wanted to, so that you can start, kind of changing the color as you want. Like I said, there's no rhyme or reason with watercoloring. My aqua painter's running out of water here. I want to get that a little bit wetter and spread it around. Okay, I kind of like those. They're all, every time you do them, and as they dry, they're going to change color again just a little bit. Oh, look, I didn't clean my aqua painter enough. I got a little bleed going on there. Get that color out of there. Otherwise, I'm going to have a new custom-made color of Terra Mango. And then I'm going to make my stems green. And again, I used the re-inker to add ink, but you can squeeze these pretty hard, flex them, and then you get a nice palette on the lid there too. Okay, so we're just gonna add a little bit of Mossy Meadow for our stem. I could have used the soft suede. You could even bring some of this Mossy Meadow down into your color here if you wanted to add a little bit more of a not quite so ripe pumpkin. You can do that too. Okay, I'm gonna get those cut out with the Big Shot here. Let's put those away. Get those cut out. And that way we have two cute little pumpkins, okay? And then my other piece that I did here, I'm going to use the two larger leaves for that and get these cut out. Fit on there. See how there's no rhyme or reason where your coloring was? Get those cut out. And that gives us some nice, just variegated color leaves with that nice pretty embossing texture on there. And then I had done the same two leaves with the gold foil. So let's get our card assembled. I have half a sheet of terracotta, so it's 8.5 by 5.5. So it was a 8.5 by 11 cut in half. Give that a cute little fold. And then I have a piece of 4 7/8 by 3 5/8 Whisper White, which I ran through the subtles embossing, and I used this line right here to kind of line it up to get it into and put it in the Big Shot. Depending on which card direction and where you want those little lines to go, you could certainly have done it this way. you know, either way. So the lines would have gone across the card sideways. I did it through where they were going up and down, but that's a personal preference. Looks good both ways. And mat that onto a piece of Mango Medley that is 5 by 3 3/4. Get those two together. And we'll get that on the card. Get that centered down there. I did use a little bit more of a border since I had such a focal point in the middle. And then my next layer, I actually embossed right on this designer paper, which is cut at 4 by 2.5. There's a beautiful suite of paper that matches this, Gathered Together suite, and I happen to choose the little wood grain. Again, I mounted, you notice how I mounted my block, mounted my stamp on my block? I tend to not always do the same because then I want to look at this, and if the block's not quite straight, then of course my verse is a little bit crooked, and I tend to freehand stuff a little bit. So I'm going to do it just a little bit off, and I'm going to get it just kind of towards the step. I have a stripe there. Let's go right above that stripe. Okay. Every piece of paper is going to be a little bit different. And if you notice, I am stamping right on the designer paper. I tend to stamp and emboss right on the paper. And I know that usually freaks most people out, but you get 2 full 12 by 12 sheets in the package. My God, my goodness, you could always get another one or change your mind and decide to layer that up. We could have put that on a little bit of a banner piece and bannered it across. See how I warmed up the back of my paper again? What that does is it kind of helps it from curling as much. A lot of times when you heat the paper, it kind of curves and waves. It also helps set that embossing powder a little bit quicker too by warming it up from the back side. Okay, and then that I'm going to put on a piece of 4 1/8 by 2 5/8 terracotta tile cardstock. Gonna mount that together there. Okay, and you could dimensional this up. I'm going to mail this card, so I'm going to keep things a little bit flatter, but this would be really cool if you like added another layer of dimension underneath this. And then we're going to start assembling our card front. A lot of the girls tried to, you know, kind of measure out where these all were, and I'm like, you know, let's just start in the middle, ladies. Let's just start in the middle. And I put 1 dimensional. And I kind of was to the center and just left just a little bit. Then my other pumpkins, I only put a dimensional on the smaller of the 2 pumpkins because this is going to overlap. You could double dimension this again if this was going to be a hand delivered card and you didn't have the postage problem, or you just put an extra stamp on it. And this one I just overlapped. I did not glue them down. I just let that lay loose. And then I came back in with my foil leaves. And I just kind of tucked them in. See how it made it so you didn't have to measure anything? Because I'm just going to kind of tuck these in. And then my other ones, I put each of these on 1 dimensional. And I alternated the larger leaf, or the three petal leaf, and the oak leaf. Wish I knew what kind of leaf that was. I want to move that over just a little bit. There we go. And I'm just going to offset this a little bit, tuck that underneath there. And the same with this one. I'm just going to offset it a little bit there. Okay. Then the ribbon that I used. I did about a 12-inch piece of ribbon. That cut. And I used our blend marker, our alcohol marker. This is the dark Cajun Craze. You can color these, any of our ribbons can be colored, and I'm just going to kind of drag that through there. You can use our regular markers, or you can actually drag it right through an ink pad. It just takes a little bit longer to dry. The alcohol marker obviously dries pretty fast. You don't have to worry about that blotchiness that you might get on this too. As it dries, it's going to kind of blend right out. I'll just give it a second there to dry before I handle it. alcohol's pretty fast. You can always do one of these too. Alcohol's pretty fast drying. So again, I do a lot of bows. You guys all know that. And when I'm doing a freehand piece of ribbon like this, I like to do the little old bunny ear fashion trick. Sometimes we teach our kids how to tie their shoelaces this way. It's a little easier for them sometimes. So I make 2 loops, 2 little bunny ears, and then I tie the 2 loops together. Okay? I hold the middle so that I can pull my tails, and it stops my ribbon from curling. Pull from both ways. Then I grab with my fingers and I pull the centers together. Okay? Then if I want them a little smaller, I can do the same thing again until I get them to the size that I want. And I usually just play with the left and right side. Okay? Let's trim my tails here. And for this, I used a glue dot to attach this little piece of ribbon. And I just kind of added that color right there. Oh, I think my tails are still just a little too long. Put that back up a little bit. There we go. And voila, one very nice wishing you well fall card. Thank you for visiting me today. Have a great and wonderful week, and be sure to come back again and check out what I'm doing next time. Have a great day. Bye.